Now that we've got a handle on a nice little selection of box modeling commands, let's see if we can't build a telescope along with a pedestal mount that'll be used to support it. Now, because we want our telescope to lay flat in our scene, let's create our object in the front view. We'll activate that view, then head to the right, clicking on Cylinder. Let's now draw our object at the crosshairs in our window. Once on the screen, let's scoot on back to the Modify column and we'll type in our values. For the radius, let's type in 9. We'll change the height to 35, the height segments to 1, and for the number of sides, we'll bump that up to 25. And once you've done that, go ahead and right-click to activate a viewport, then hit the Shift-Control-Z shortcut for Zoom Extents. That'll make sure that our cylinder is centered in all 4 windows. So we can see our geometry as it's being added in, let's now turn on edged faces in our shaded perspective view. We'll do that with the F4 shortcut. To get to our modeling commands, we can now convert our cylinder down to an editable poly. We'll do that by simply right-clicking, dropping down to the bottom of the list, choosing Convert to, then Convert to Editable Poly. Now our telescope is going to consist of 4 primary sections, each being cylindrically shaped and each being just a little smaller in diameter than the one directly in front of it. What we have on the screen right now is going to serve as the front largest section of our telescope, the area where the front lens sits. Why don't we add a little extra detail around the very front lip of that section? Now to be able to build that out, we're going to need a little more geometry. That'll come by way of an additional line of edges that we'll create using the Slice Plane command. In the stack, open up the Editable Poly entry. Now activate the Element way of selecting and click on the cylinder. Our Slice command will be found in the right-hand column a little farther down. When you find that button, go ahead and click. Looking in the top view, you'll see the slice plane is originally positioned in the center of our selection. We're going to want to move that closer down to the bottom end in our top view. We'll activate the top view, grab the green stick on the gizmo, and move the slice plane down so it's maybe 1/8 to 1/4 inch from the end of our cylinder. Once you have that in place, we'll now make the slice. Go back to the right-hand side and directly below Slice Plane, click on the Slice button. It's the slice that does the actual cut. Once we've done that, we can turn off the Slice Plane button and deselect our polys. With our new edges created, let's take our perspective view full screen. We'll do that using the Alt-W shortcut. What we want to do now is select that small little row of polygons. To do that, let's first orbit to the side so we get a good side lateral view. Once we've done that, we'll change our selection over to Poly, and up on the left-hand side of the toolbar, we'll verify that our window selection has been set to crossing. If in the right mode, the icon will have the white box on the edge of the perforated square behind it. Okay, now we can carefully make our selection. Starting above and to the right-hand side of our cylinder, we'll window down, falling just short of that slice plane line. Now once you've made your selection, orbit around to make sure that you have indeed selected the proper polys. Now in addition to the row of polys that we wanted, we also got the capped poly on the end. This one we don't want. So simply hold down the Alt key and click on that circle. To build up this area, which is going to represent the front part of our telescope, we'll now use the extrusion options. Over on the right, find the Extrude command. Now to access the options, we won't be clicking directly on Extrude, instead clicking on the button directly to its right. This brings up a caddy. We can move the caddy to the side by simply grabbing it up where it says Extrude Polys, holding down the left mouse button and moving our mouse. You'll notice that when we orbit the view, the caddy stays perpendicular or flat with our window. What looks like a mess right this moment can easily be changed by going to the second row and changing to Local Normal. That will serve to push all the polygons out in a straight direction. Using the third level, the extrusion amount, we can now take that down. Why don't we settle in by typing in a value of 0.5. You can double-click on the value, type in your number, then press Enter to lock it in. Let's accept by clicking on the green check mark. We'll stay in polygon selection mode and simply click on that large circular poly. Orbit around to get yourself in position, zooming in if you like. Then, using the right mouse click, down in the lower left square, choose Extrude. To form the lens for our telescope, we'll simply push this in a tad. Very good. Once done, we'll click away, and we can start building up the other end of the first section of our telescope. Let's roll our wheel back, orbit around, and select that polygon. This polygon will represent the first break in our 4-piece telescope. To drop down to the next section or level, we'll use the Inset command. Over in the right-hand column, one level below Extrude and to its right, go ahead and click on the option box for Inset. This actually looks pretty good with the way things are, so we'll leave the setting at 1 and we'll simply accept the results. Now we're going to want to extrude out the next section of our telescope. For that, we'll again use the option box for the extrude, but this time around we'll simply right-click on our screen. In the lower left-hand square, find the Extrude command, then click on the option box to its left. We can then drop down to the third row to make our adjustment. Now, you might remember that the height on our original cylinder was 35. With this section designed to be just the same length or height as our front section, let's change our extrude amount to 35. Again, we'll double-click on the value, type in 35, then press Enter. Once we've done that, we'll accept the changes made. Let's now hit Z so we can center the polygon on the screen. At this point, we simply repeat the process again. Now, this time when we inset, we're going to go a little bit deeper than the last. Right-click on the screen, choose the option box for Inset. The third level where it reads 1, let's change that instead to 1.5. We'll lock the number down and accept the changes. Roll your mouse back to give yourself a little bit more room, positioning yourself for the upcoming extrude. When in place, right-click again on the screen, head down to the lower left-hand square, opening up the Extrude option box. Now you can see that Max has remembered the last amount that we've used with the extrude. Leaving it at 35, go ahead and accept the extrusion. To begin our fourth section, we'll do another inset. This time, when the option opens, we'll change the amount from 1.5 up to 2. Lock in your results, accept the changes made. Now for the fourth and final section, we'll extrude again. Choosing the option box each time locks us down with the same extrude value as the time before. We'll accept the 35 value by clicking the green check mark. Go ahead and hit Z again. For the telescope's eyepiece, we're going to add a little extra geometry onto the end. That's going to be just another extrusion. This time, though, we'll simply use the mouse. We'll get ourselves in position, we'll right-click, we'll opt away from the option box this time, simply clicking on the extrude name. Now, extrude the polygon out, maybe a good 3/4 to an inch. Like we did with the front part of the telescope, we'll build this area up also. Orbit to the side for a better view. Continuing with both the poly selection and the crossing command, go ahead and window that entire last section. Orbit around to verify the polygons that you've selected. Now, just like we did on the front, we want the row of polys, but not the circular poly on the end. To deselect that, hold the Alt key down and click on the circle. Let's now fancy this up a little bit by using the bevel options. Again, we can access those using the right mouse click. In the caddy on the second level, change by local normal. The third level will take down quite a ways. Then, why don't we force in the value by double-clicking and typing 0.3. For the outline, let's take that to negative 0.5. Okay, we're going to want to agree to what we've done, but we want to continue to add another bevel. This time around, on the bottom row, instead of clicking on the green check mark, we'll go to the middle, clicking on the green plus sign. This will bake in our previous bevel, yet still give us the options to continue on. This time around, our second bevel will change from normal to bipoly. We can then accept the two values below just as they are, 0.3 and negative 0.5. Go ahead now and accept the bevels by clicking on the check mark. Now to finish off this end, we'll add our eye lens. Select the bottom circular poly and we'll perform another inset, this time though simply using the mouse. Right-click on the poly. From the list, choose the Inset command. Put your mouse on top of the selected poly and simply pull back. Once you like the distance that you've gone, right-click, changing over to the Extrude command. Now, for the lens itself, we can simply bevel this in. Go ahead and click away, then we'll roll back and recenter our completed telescope. So that's it for the telescope body. Next, we'll see if we can't build a stand or pedestal for it to be mounted to. For our telescope mount, we're going to use a simple primitive tube. Needing that mount to stand upright, we'll make our tube in the top view. Let's go ahead and take things back to 4 views. We can then activate the top view, taking it full screen. For the telescope to be balanced properly, we probably ought to position our mount somewhere in the middle of our second largest telescope section. Roll your wheel and zoom into that area. Now, so we can see the exact center of our telescope from side to side, go ahead and click on any of the blue wires. The red sticks that you see on the screen now represent that exact center point. This will be where we position the middle of our tube. Over on the right, in the command panel, activate the tube command. Positioning your cursor directly where the two red sticks on the telescope come together, go ahead and start pulling away. Now, this first ring is going to represent the hole in the tube. We're going to want that hole to be just a little bit bigger than the side-by-side dimensions on the telescope. When you're in the general area, let go and continue pushing sideways. This will now be the thickness of our mount. When happy there, click and push the mouse away diagonally. This last mouse action will set the height. Now, even though we can't see it from here, go ahead and click, and we'll go to the Modify column to type in our numbers. In the parameter section, radius 1 we'll take to 9. Radius 2 we'll take to 10. For the height, let's type in -15. We'll change the height segments down to 2, and we'll bump the number of sides up on our tube to 30. With those numbers in place and the tube still selected, we'll activate the Move command, moving the tube to somewhere around the center of that second section on the telescope. Okay, once we've done that, we'll use the keyboard shortcut Alt-W to return to 4 views. Then activate the perspective view, taking it full screen. Let's now get a little closer in on our tube. I'll hit Z to move in quickly, then roll my wheel back a little ways to zoom out. Now, to cut the needed area out, we could always just Boolean the mount at this point. That would give us a perfect fit in addition to a real clean cut. But we're trying to stay with the box modeling techniques here. So instead, let's see if we just can't maybe pull a few polygons down. Now, on inspection, you'll notice that the top of the tube has 5 polygons on each side of the telescope. We're going to leave those polygons where they are, selecting all the other polygons on that top surface. Now, to better see those, let's first do a little trick. We'll select the telescope, then on the keyboard, type Alt-X. That's the shortcut key for see-through mode. This now allows us to see through the telescope directly down onto the polygons that we're going to need to select. Okay, go back and select the tube, converting it down to an editable poly. In the Modify stack, open the Editable Poly entry, selecting Polygon. Now we can select the proper polygons on the direct top surface of our tube. Remember, we're going to want to leave 5 polygons unselected on each side. I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll start here, hold the Control key, and we'll go around. We'll do the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go as far as I can, then we'll orbit to the other side. Let's go ahead over. Okay. Now we had 5 on one side, let's get 5 on this. I'll leave this one free. 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll hold the Control key down, getting that last polygon. Okay, let's go ahead and orbit back around, holding that selection more to a side view. Now look about halfway down the tube. You see that row of edges? We're going to now move these polygons down just to right above that. With the Move command active, grab the blue or Z stick on the transform gizmo, moving those polygons down. When done, I'll have those polygons maybe writing, let's say, 1/8 of an inch above that middle edge line. Let's go ahead now and deselect. We'll pull back and we'll see whether or not we need to now move the mount down. Yeah, it looks like it's a little bit buried inside the telescope. We'll go to Move, and we'll simply move that as needed. Now once we've done that, we'll reselect the telescope, hit Alt-X again, taking it out of see-through mode. Okay, back onto the tube. Now on the bottom of the tube, let's see what we have. This area, in order for us to follow along with our work, is going to need to be a solid surface. Watch how we do that. Back on the right, activate Edge mode. Now, on the bottom of the tube, select any of the single inside edges. And once you've got that selected, it'll turn red. With that selected, return to the right-hand column and click on the Loop command. This will select all the connected edges along that ring. Once you've got those, go ahead and hit the Delete command. What remains on the bottom of the tube can be selected as a border. Back on the right-hand side, under Edge, click on the Border selection. Now click anywhere along that ring at the bottom of the tube. With that entire area selected, which in essence is a series of edges, we'll now go back to the right-hand side, move a little further down the column, and choose Cap. This will fill that surface with one solid polygon. We can now select that newly created poly to continue building the bottom part of our mount. With that polygon selected, let's go ahead and enter the Bevel command. We're going to bevel this up just a bit and then in. The circular polygon that remains is going to be the size of our post as it leads down. So we can continue working on that and at the same time see how far down that post ought to run. Let's lock our selection using the spacebar. We can now orbit back around so the telescope is on the top and the mount on the bottom. When in position, let's go ahead and right-click and activate Extrude. With that polygon still locked in place, we can go ahead and perform the extrusion. When you're happy with the distance, go ahead and let go of your mouse. At this point, if you found the post being a little bit too far around, what you could do is select all the neighboring polygons and simply scale them in two directions. Let's do that. We'll unlock our selection by tapping the spacebar. Still in polygon mode, we'll start below the post heading down, windowing that entire section. With those polygons selected, we'll right-click and choose the Scale command. Now for a two-dimensional scale, we won't be lighting up the gold triangle, but instead the gold bracket that connects the yellow and green sticks together. We can now push that in to whatever value we like. Okay, once you've done that, go ahead and deselect. To finish this out, let's put a base on our mount. That'll require us to go back down to the bottom of the post on the mount, selecting that bottom polygon. With that selected, I'll type Z to zoom in, then roll my wheel back so I'm not quite as close in. Let's lock this poly down again and orbit back to the top side. Now we'll create a bevel pointing down. We'll push down, let go, and then push out. The last part, the stand, will be an extrusion that will then 2D scale out. Activate the Extrude command. Extrude a polygon down. For this one, maybe I'll go 1.5 inches. Roll my wheel back, making sure I can see everything. Then I'll 2D scale this. Unlock your selection, click away, type Z, roll your wheel to get in better position, and feast your eyes on what you've created. So that's going to do it. We've now got both our telescope and a sturdy pedestal mount that we can use to spin it around. Both parts starting out as a simple primitive object and a few box modeling commands. I'm going to go ahead and save the scene out as telescope completed if you'd like to take a look. Let's go ahead and select that poly. Now, over on the right, we're going to have to go a little farther down. On the right-hand side of that right-hand column, you'll now see the tessellate command. Go ahead and click that. Let's now deselect the polygon. Now take a look at that. It's taken the polygon, dividing it into 4 smaller polys. We can now select those holding down the Control key as we click. Let's now see what we can find in the Bevel options. We'll right-click on the screen, and then to the left of the Bevel command, we'll open the option box. Again, we've got some choices down on the second row. We can bevel by group, by local normal, or by polygon. Let's choose the by poly. Now, things are all twisted around until we adjust our numbers somewhat. Let's first take our outline and see if we can't extend that out. We'll then take the amount, and I'm going to actually push this into positive territory. Okay, now why don't we go ahead and type in our numbers. We'll double-click on the amount, which is the 3rd level down. Type in 60 and press Enter. Now these are going to shoot off the screen. We should probably roll our wheel back just a tad so we can see what we've done. Notice the caddy box stays open. Now down on the 3rd level, which represents the outline for our bevel, let's go ahead and type in -4. We'll press Enter, then we can accept that amount by clicking on the green check mark. Now when finished, we're going to want these to represent legs to our object. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to activate the Scale command and see if we can't push each of these polygons a little further to the side. Now when you fill in the gold triangle on the transform gizmo and scale, you notice that's not exactly what's happening. Now what we have to do is go up on the toolbar and change this little icon from Use Pivot Point Center down to Use Selection Center. What this does is temporarily reposition the position of our pivot point to the center of our selection. Now we can scale these out. Once you've got those out far enough, we're going to go back to the same icon on the toolbar and change it back to using the pivot centers. This will now enable us to scale the polygon directly upon itself. Once you've done that, go ahead and deselect, then orbit around so the box is standing right side up. The 2 little arms that we have sticking out on the 2nd level, let's move that entire area up. And we're going to do that by manipulating the vertices that connect that area together. Over in the Modify column, click on Vertex. Let's orbit around to more of a straight view, and then we'll window completely around the vertices that make up that 2nd section. With those now selected, we'll activate our Move command, and we can move those up. Let's now go back to Polygon mode, selecting all the polygons that make up the 3rd row. Now, something we haven't talked about yet is there's a couple different ways that you can activate your sub-object options. You can click directly on the names in the modifier stack. You can also use the icons directly below. Here's Vertices, Edges, Border, Polygon, and Element. Another way you can activate from one sub-object to another is using the number keys in the keyboard. Now, I'm not talking about the numpad over on the right, I'm talking about the actual numbers at the top of your keyboard. 1 will go Vertex, 2 for Edges, Borders are 3, Polygon is 4, and Element is 5. Lastly, so we get them up on the table all at the same time, you can also right-click for your sub-object selections. You'll find those at the bottom of the upper left-hand square. Okay, back to the business at hand. We want to select all the polygons that make up the 3rd row. Let's now activate our bevel options. Now, as opposed to using the right mouse click, we could always go back to the bevel command on the right-hand side and click on the option box. Let's do that this time. It pretty much does the same thing. Now, in the options, let's bevel these by local normal. Then to slim this out, let's take our amount down to a negative value. I'm going to settle in right around -10. If we now want to change the outline down on the 3rd level, we can do that also. Now, this time around, we want to accept our bevel, but we want to leave the option box open. So on the bottom row of the caddy, we'll click on the green plus sign. Let's now see if we can't change that around a little. I'll take the amount of my bevel up to around 12. And for the outline, I'm going to leave that at about -16. Once you're done, go ahead and accept by clicking on the green check mark. Let's see if we can't now do a little work on the polygons on the top section of our box. In polygon mode, go ahead and select those polys. Now, you don't want to have selected the polygon on the top of your box, so orbit around and make sure that you don't have that selected. And I'll roll my wheel to get a little bit closer into view and then open the Extrude option box with the right mouse click. This time, down on the 2nd level of the caddy, we'll change it to by local normal. Let's now make this amount around 40. We'll press Enter to lock that in, and then we'll accept our extrusion. What I'd now like to do is to select some edges, so right-click, get into Edge mode. Orbit around so we have a nice front-end look at our polygons. Then window directly across those polys to grab those edges. Now once you've done that, get a little bit overhead so we can see things from a bird's eye view. Let's now do what is referred to as chamfering edges. Now we can find the chamfer command over on the right-hand side, or we can simply right-click. It's going to be located on the lower left-hand square directly below Extrude. Now chamfering an edge will divide the edge in two. Go ahead and make all the polygons that go around the sides right about the same size. Commit to the chamfer by letting go your left mouse button, then chamfer again. All we're really trying to do here is round off the top section. The polygons on the top of the box are now pretty distorted. Let's orbit to a side view and select all those polys. Now for this one, we're going to want to go from a crossing window to a window selection, so go ahead and click on the button. To the side I go. We'll activate the polygon command, and we'll make that window selection. Now once you have all those polys, go ahead and press delete. What we're trying to do is basically clean up this area. Now this ring of edges that you see around the top is considered to be a border. Using the border selection, go ahead and click on any one of those edges. Back on the right, a little further down, we'll now use the cap command. This replaces all those oddly shaped polygons with one big one. Let's go ahead now and select that large poly, and we're going to use a command called Inset. It too is located either on the right-hand side or using the right mouse click. Inset creates a new smaller polygon directly in line with the existing one. Now once we've done that, we'll go ahead and bevel this up just a tad. Now when you pull back for the outline, don't go all the way to a tip. Leave there a little bit of extra meat on the top. That'll give us the opportunity of playing around with the Weld command. Let's drop into vertex mode, selecting all the vertices that make up that top ring. With those all selected, we're going to pull out our glue gun and see if we can't weld them all together. Now the weld, like all the commands, is on the right-hand side, but you can also find it by right-clicking. I'm going to do that. Down in the lower left-hand square, go ahead and activate the Weld option box. Using the spinner on the second level, let's go ahead and crank that up high enough where these all weld together. And once you've done that, go ahead and accept. Now if that vertex is a little bit too high in the scene or a little too short, we can always move that around. This little area on the top of our object that looks like a hat, let's select all of those as polygons. For that, I'm going to return to the crossing method of selection. Now, down on the right-hand column, we're going to be looking for a command called msmooth. When you find the button, go ahead and click. This, in essence, subdivides the geometry, making the surface area smoother. Let's go ahead now and move those polygons down just a tad. Why don't we now go back to vertex mode and again select that top vertex. The reason being is I'd like to chamfer this down a little. We'll get ourselves in good position, we'll activate the chamfer command, and we can now push that down. To wrap this up, let's do a little extra beveling on the polygons that stick out as our arms. We'll go to the polygon level, and we'll select each of those polygons. Now, getting a little closer on the action, we can go ahead and do our bevel. We'll go in, we'll go down, then we'll push out, and we'll see if we can't form this down to a point. We'll then scale that, and then we can pull those in. Very good. Get out of sub-object mode by right-clicking and choosing top level in the upper left-hand square. Go ahead and orbit around to inspect your work. So there you go with a few options when box modeling. I really can't stress enough just how important all of 3ds Max's sub-object modeling tools are. Do yourself a favor and take the time to learn them well. You get a solid grip on Max's box modeling toolset, and you'll soon be able to make pretty much anything your imagination can muster up. I'll save this out as Box Model Completed if you'd like to go in for a look.